from the heart of Dubai, where tomorrow is being built today, to the world. Welcome to the CTO Show with Mehmet. Here, we redefine technology and reimagine possibilities. With Mehmet, delve into the riveting realms of AI, cybersecurity, and digital technology. Experience the thrilling highs and lows of startups. Immerse yourself in the spirit of entrepreneurship and witness the future of business innovation being written in real time. Now, without further ado, let's tune in and explore the future.
Hello and welcome back to an episode of the CTO Show with Mehmet. Today I'm very pleased joining me, Mary Moore-Simmons, she's the VP of Engineering at Keebo AI. Mary, thank you very much for being here with me today. I really appreciate your time. So the way I love to do it when I have every guest, the audience know by now, I keep it to them to introduce a little bit, about their journey, what brought you up to, what you're currently doing, and then we can start discussion from there. We're gonna talk, of course, about topics, mainly about being a VP of engineering. We're going to talk about building teams. We're going to talk about AI a little bit, and whatever, the discussion will let us talk about today. So the floor is yours, Mary.
Oh, thank you so much, Mehmet. It's great. Thanks so much for having me on. Yeah, so you asked a little bit about my journey. I'm happy to start there if that makes sense.
Sure.
Yeah, so I actually started out my career as a chemical engineer. That's my like fun fact. I started out actually as a chemical engineer, but I studied computer science in college as well, and I made a move to software engineering after a few years. And so I worked. I kind of like accidentally fell into startups. I got recruited by a startup without really knowing what a startup was, and then I just fell in love with startups. I've been working at startups for over a decade now. Started out actually in DevOps, which I still has a special place in my heart. And then I moved over to managing teams and then managing non-DevOps teams, more like traditional software engineering, back-end teams, front-end teams. And then sort of like, I guess I would say that I continued to expand my scope in leadership. I think one really formative experience for me was seeing how culture can change as companies grow and wanting to be able to help guide that so that in a startup, as companies grow, that you can maintain a really strong culture as you try to grow and scale. So that was kind of what drove me into continuing to try to like expand my scope. But in engineering leadership for I think almost 10 years now.
Great, Marianne. Thank you for this introduction. And culture, we're going to talk a little bit about it. But first, tell me a little bit more about, your current role and, about what you're doing at Keebo and what Keebo does.
Yeah, so I'm our head of engineering at Keebo. We are a small but mighty company. We are a Series A startup, and we do optimization. Currently we do optimization for data warehouses, so for Snowflake and Databricks. We use machine learning AI and AI to automatically optimize Snowflake environments and Databricks environments. And we do that through optimizing warehouses. And then we also can help optimize where you're sending your queries. And we're working on optimizing queries themselves.
Fantastic. Now, I want to stay there a little bit before, jumping on other topics, because you just mentioned AI and a bunch of other things and data engineering. And you said you also you like DevOps also as well. How are you seeing, this intersection now? I just had an episode the other day, and you were talking about how now there's kind of merge between, let's say, software engineering and data engineering, right? Mm-hmm. So from your perspective and as a VP of engineering, and you've done this for a long time, so what's changing currently, Mary? What are some of the things that are we're heading towards, I would say?
Yeah, what's interesting to me and is that I have found myself in almost every company that I work at describing systems as like all software does is it takes data from one place and like does things to it and then puts it in a new place. Um, and so actually what's interesting is I've always kind of seen software engineering as like there's data underpinning all of it. But what I think has changed is that the size of data has increased. Data has become incredibly valuable, and we've realized what we can do with data in a way with machine learning, with AI, and even just with like, data science and data analysis. We've realized, I think, as a society, how useful data is now that it's digitized, and that's just continuing to grow. And so what's happening is it used to be that you could handle this, like handle, data underneath your applications without a whole lot of experience or expertise in data engineering because the data sets were fairly minimal. But now the data sets are massive and we're realizing all of the benefits that you can get by getting more and more data and doing things like training machine learning models on them. And so the best practices around how to manage that data has had to like level up. And so because of that, I'll say like even for myself, I'm hiring, I think, for three ICs right now and a manager, and so four people total. And for those four roles, three of them I'm requiring data engineering experience, and one of them I'm requiring machine learning experience. So I think it's just like as your company starts to do more machine learning and care more about data engineering experience becomes just like absolutely critical. Even though most of the people I'm hiring are going to be writing features on the product, it doesn't really matter because they still like, I mean, it does matter, but they need that data engineering experience and the other feature building experience.
Absolutely. Now, from infrastructure perspective, because Mary, I think, and maybe I don't want to make too much loaded questions today. From infrastructure perspective, because also this is something that falls under you.
Mhm.
Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
What also AI is doing here? Like, is it like how is it helping you? I would ask it this way.
Are you talking about, well, are you talking about like ML ops and that sort of thing?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, great. Yeah. So that's something that I get excited about because it's the intersection of like machine learning and my favorite thing, which is DevOps. So ML ops is a great, it's a big emerging area, as you know. And it's because um one, like we actually already know for non-machine learning use cases, well, I say we, but like a lot of people know this, I think. But one thing I'm personally a huge proponent of is I love having DevOps teams that are very focused on engineering experience. And I've loved that for a long time. And the reason is because my engineers are I mean, like like very from a very business perspective, my engineers are my most expensive resource. And they are the hardest to find. I think it's very difficult to find good engineers. And so they're hard to find good ones and they're very expensive. And so I want to keep them happy and I want to keep them efficient. And so that's what DevOps teams do to me, if you like orient them that way, is like their entire focus is like, how do I keep these engineers happy and efficient? And that's like very holistic. That includes like, how do I help them improve quality? How do I help them improve security? And then also, how do I help them move fast? Like, how do I make the annoying parts of their job easy so that they can do the fun things and like just move faster? And so I think this has been valuable forever. But now with the introduction of machine learning, it's like, okay, now we have these new set of people that we need to keep happy and efficient. And what they're doing is just is slightly, well, I say slightly, it's different than what software engineers have done in the past. And I will say it depends on the person, but some of these machine learning folks actually don't have a background in software engineering. They have a background in mathematics. And so they actually need even more help than maybe your average engineer would to help them like move things through to production. And they have even less context than maybe your average engineer would, like backend engineer would, on how to have like stable, reliable services in production that are repeatable, that are well monitored. So they actually need even more help and support sometimes. Sometimes they don't. Sometimes people just like they were a software engineer and now they're doing machine learning and they don't need quite as much help. But some of the folks more advanced in machine learning need a little bit more help in that area because that's not their area of expertise. And so this is like this new emerging market that I think is really exciting.
Really exciting. Now I'm gonna ask you a question, which is I'm not sure if I asked before, and this is why. If I did, it must be long time. Especially in the startup space, Mary. People ask me, but I like to hear from the expert. They ask me always, what differentiates the role of VP of engineering from the role of the CTO?
Oh, I love this. I'll tell you what I believe it to be for me. So for me personally, I haven't coded in a while. Like I think my last I haven't like seriously coded on any sort of like serious production project in a while. And so for me, that's just recognizing, like, I just need to recognize that I'm no longer the best person in the room to make technical decisions. Um, and when I am like spending my time on a team to figure out how to make sure that team is like happy and thriving and growing and doing well, I've noticed that I tend to gravitate towards like people problems, organizational problems, process problems. Um, I still really love the technical problems, but but I recognize that I haven't been close enough to that for long enough that I feel like comfy saying, yeah, I'm a CTO. Whereas I think that CTOs tend to be more technical. I think that I've had CTOs that I've worked with that have zero reports. All they do is like they're essentially like a principal engineer or distinguished engineer. And so I think that CTOs, I think, bring a much more technical lens to what they want to do in the organization. Whereas like I'm acknowledging that like I want to empower engineers to make technical decisions and that I'm probably not the best person to make some of those technical decisions. Like I can ask questions, I can help them with architecture design, I can dive in with them if needed, but I'm like have so much on my plate that I don't think I have the time to dive in technically as much as I want. Whereas I think CTOs probably recognize like actually my passion is technical and like yeah, I'll lead people too, but like that's what I want to do. Whereas I think my passion is leading people and I love technical problems, but like I think that I tend to gravitate more towards leading people. So that might be a spicy answer. It's possible other people have different opinions, but that's mine.
No, that's good. I like sometimes people, ask me why you keep asking like kind of same questions to different guests, and I say I have a philosophy because the more for me at least, and I think maybe some of the audience they love it also. The more like we collect different opinions, so probably someone would have kind of a mix that makes sense more to them, right? So completely makes sense to me also as well. Now, one thing which you mentioned in your intro also, Mary, like you worked like almost 10 years, you said, for in startups now, and you work like in places like GitHub, Zcash, and others. So how do you balance really the velocity? We know like in startups we need something, we say like bring things fast and fix them fast. How do you manage this balance between this velocity needed and at the same time making sure that the team is sustainable and like in the environment is sustainable? Well, what lessons you can share with us in regard to this?
Mhm. I think that anyone who's told you that they figured it out is probably wrong. But but I'll tell you like how I try and I'll acknowledge that it's a difficult balance that you are constantly like making micro adjustments all the time and you're also constantly making mistakes and having to like again adjust because you've went too far in the wrong direction. But I'll tell you sort of like high level philosophically um the the thing I like to think about is how much effort do you spend building like a solid, reliable product relies on how confident you are that that feature or that product is a market fit.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have a new feature that you're building and you're not as confident that it's the right thing, you should be building it fast and sloppy, honestly. Like you should be building it fast and sloppy because you just want to get it in front of a customer as soon as possible and get their feedback. And then if they like it, great, then you can go shore it up. If you have a feature that has a ton of market validation, customers have been begging you for it, you like know that it's what they need, it's on an established product that's already getting revenue, that's probably the time to make sure that you're building it more reliably and scalably, because you have more confidence that the customers are going to like it, and they're going to immediately want to use it, and then it's going to have to scale. So I think that like it depends on what phase you're in. If you're in a phase of like, and this is why startups are often like moving fast, because they're mostly in that phase of like, we don't really know exactly what the customers are going to want, and so like let's try to figure it out. But then right, so step one, you do that, but then you're in a place where, okay, customers love this, okay, now it's a hot mess and we need to go fix it. And so that's the place where it gets tricky, because then you start to have trade-offs of like, well, is it stable enough for now and I can go add more features? And that is honestly like a day-to-day, week-to-week, month-to-month trade-off conversation that you're having.
So if I understand that correctly, Mary, is when we decide to put a feature, we think that customer would like it or would use it. We don't plan its full sprints, and sorry if you're not technical or you didn't do product development. So what I mean, like you put the let's make it simple to the audience, like kind of the roadmap of that feature. So we don't need to put the whole thing at the beginning. We just make only the main, let's say, use case that we're gonna solve with this feature, and then, as I understood from you, we plan how we can enhance it, where we want to go with it. Did I get it correctly?
Yeah. Scope it down as small as possible at first, and then figure out what you need to do. And like, do you need to change the feature? Do you need to enhance it? Do you need to stabilize it because it was absolutely on the money and the customer loved it and now everybody wants it? You sort of like figure it out as you go. The hard trade-off is that it's always that question of, do I spend my time shoring up the existing features, or do I go get more revenue by adding new features? And that's the trade-off, because it can be a little bit harder to track what revenue or efficiency you're losing by not shoring up your existing features. That can be a little bit harder to measure, a little bit. And like, to be honest, customers kind of have like a little point where you can kind of annoy them a little bit, but not like a lot. And so you're kind of playing this game where you're like, how much can I actually bother my customers without them being really upset so that I can go get new revenue right now?
Right. And I think in this, to put it in this way, like if we're talking about startups, so probably we're also talking about early adopters who are kind of, they would understand that, some, not non-stable things will come out, and there will be some problems down the road. So I think this is also important to choose, the early customers who are gonna try this feature. Like we used to call them, as field people, like friendly customers who would like, they will understand. Yeah, we're trying to see if this is works. Do you need it? And then get back to engineering and see how we can enhance it. So 100% on that. Now, within this, as a leader yourself, Mary, I'm sure, between the field team and the engineering team, and usually there are a bunch of people in between, but sometimes there will be this, I would say, fire that's coming. Hey, things are not working. So how do you manage to protect your team from all this? It's like chaos. I know. I've seen it before myself. Because I was the one who was complaining. But anyway, of course, with times I start to understand. But as a leader, how do you protect your team from all this, I would say, crisis effects that might also affect them also as well?
Mhm. I think that the key things that I like to do are, I like to set clear expectations with the entire organization of what is a crisis and what is not a crisis. So I like to set clear expectations of, okay, if a customer is upset about this, that's a big problem. That's an outage. We're going to work 24/7 until we fix it. If they're upset about, so like if the service is down, if like the UI is not loading, if there's like data is completely wrong and it's like billing data, right? That's a big deal. But if there is a bug, there's a workaround, that's not as big a deal. We don't need to react as quickly. So I think one of the things that I like to do is set expectations with the rest of the organization of what is urgent and what is less urgent. And that way we can all be aligned on that. Once you do that, then I tend to set up a system so that the engineers can be a little bit buffered from the urgent things. Right now, what I do is I do a rotation of like we have an on-call engineer that handles like urgent bugs and pages. And that rotates through the team. And so then the rest of the team can really focus on their work and not be constantly getting bugged or bothered. So that's some of the things that I like to do. Um, and that's me sort of like zooming in on like outages and bugs and those kinds of fires, but, there's also like strategic fires, and again, that's just one thing I just like to bring to a conversation is I like to bring reality to the leadership team because they'll say, "Hey, I really want this," and I'm like, "I That's a super great idea, and I think it's super important. Which of these 4 things do you wanna not do so that you can get this done?" And so I just like to bring like a very like I'm not strongly I mean, I can bring my opinion if needed, but I like to almost be a neutral party in these sometimes because it's like, "Hey, this is a business decision, and you can't have everything, so what thing do you want?" And those are like the sort of 2 techniques that I find most useful.
Absolutely makes sense to me. Now, when it comes to hiring, Mary, what, of course, the technical stuff should be there, but from like what special traits you look into when you hire your team members? Like, of course, other than, as I said, their technical knowledge.
Mhm. Yeah, hiring, I love that you asked this because hiring is one of the most important things that I think I do, as a leader at a startup because you're usually hiring if you're at a startup. And it's the most important thing that you can do because you want to build a strong team with strong culture. I will say that what I'm going to tell you is my personal preference. I think it's my personal preference is based on my leadership style that I like to have. And my leadership style that I like to have is I like to have like a very transparent, high autonomy team. And so in order to do that, I need people who are have a growth mindset, who love learning, who want to learn new things, who love learning new technologies, and love feedback and want to take feedback and want to continuously improve. And then the other thing I need is like people who are able to look at like big, scary problems and just say, okay, you know what? This is big and scary. I'm not 100% sure if we can get it done, but I'm just going to make a plan and I'm going to start at step 1 and we'll adjust as we go. Like people who don't get too shell shocked when there's like a big problem in front of them. They just like chip away at it. And I think like there's a piece of that I is maybe in those 2 things, but I'll just mention it separately, which is like people who like improving things, like people who feel
Mm-hmm.
empowered and want to improve things. Um, I love just like giving my team all the context, direction, and information that they need to make decisions and be like, here's what I see as the biggest problems. What do you see as the biggest problems? What is affecting you? And then working with them to come up with a plan for how they can improve that and make their lives better and improve the like biggest problem in the organization and make customers' lives better. So those are like the big things I look for, but I always want to caveat that's because of my leadership style. There are different leadership styles that are looking for different things.
Yeah, absolutely makes sense. Talking about still leadership style, so I know you championed for authentic and transparent leadership. So
Mhm.
how does this look in practice? Like, especially when it comes, of course, like I always tell people leadership, it's not about, titles or like, it's not like something that you can describe in day to day things. It's like about decisions also as well. So how that looks like to you, an authentic and transparent leadership.
Mhm. I think that the thing that a leader needs to be authentic and transparent and have that work is I don't know a better way to say this, so it's gonna sound a little mushy, but like have like true love for your team. Like, you have to, like, love your team. You have to, really care about them. You have to care about their growth. You have to, like, want the best for them. And you have to be humble and know that, like, you don't always know best. You're not always the right decision maker. And, your job is to empower these people and get out of their way. And I think that, like, if you don't have that, then authenticity and transparency does not go well with an engineering team. And so like this again, it sounds like mushy, but it's like the key ingredient is love. It's like you got to love your team, you got to care for your team, and also you got to be humble and understand like you're just there to empower them, and that's what your role is.
Cool. Now let me ask you about culture, Mary. I'm liking the flow, and I'm trying to connect the things.
Mm-hmm.
Culture, and it's something I tend to always ask about it, whether VP of engineering like yourself, CTO, CEO, CMO, everyone on the leadership team. I like to ask them about culture. And what I'm interested in, because there is kind of a myth, or I would say, I don't know, this is a riddle I'm trying to solve here. Does culture scale? Uh, Different opinions I had so far. And I'm doing the podcast for the past 2 years and a half, and I have mixed opinions. What's your opinion? Does it scale? Can we keep the culture? When you said just now, for example, the love for the team, and the way, which is authentic. I can see this, I can feel it. But how we can scale, and is it scalable?
That's a great question. I have seen it scale, but I've only seen it scale to a certain point, and so it's possible that I like to believe that anything is possible, and I like to believe that it can scale. I
Love
want
that.
to I want to acknowledge that I've only seen it scale beyond to like maybe a couple thousand people, and I haven't seen it scale beyond that, but I believe it's possible. And the times that I've seen this scale really well is when I had a CEO that was like truly bought into caring about people and caring about culture, and that was like core to who they were, and they like embodied the culture that they were looking for in the organization and held people accountable to it. And so I think that like I like to believe it's possible, and I think that the recipe is like your CEO has to live it, embody it, and like expect it from everybody in the organization.
Continuing on this, how much do you think is the mindset of, again, it's the CEO? You mentioned the CEO, and always we say the CEO drives this. So how
Mm-hmm.
much do you think, this mindset shift from, being that humble, small startup, in the journey of becoming an iconic company, or, like a big scale up now, plays role in this? And have you seen it, like, okay, it's nice to see like you've seen good examples, but have you, like, what about like the other side of the table, about people just jumping out of this, we call usually startups rocket ships, right? So what can go wrong, if I want to be more straightforward in my question? What can go wrong?
Yeah, I love that. So things that can go wrong. One little like secret that maybe some people would disagree with me on is as a leader, you don't really get brownie points for making your people happy. You don't really get brownie points for like for keeping the culture. You have to care about it. Your CEO or like is going to hold you accountable to results. That's the most important thing they're going to hold you accountable to. They less likely, almost never keep you, and this is probably again a spicy take, keep you accountable to like, is your team happy? Is your team thriving? Is the culture good on your team? Unless it impacts the metrics. And so that's one thing, is like that's like sort of the reason I want to give for why it's hard to care about it, because a lot of leaders aren't like, holding you accountable to that. They're holding you accountable to, results and metrics. And as long as the culture is like just good enough that the metrics don't go south, then it's fine. So I think the things that can go wrong are people get busy and they stop worrying about it, or they stop thinking about it because they're really focused on the metrics. Um, I think that it can be hard when money goes bad, like if the revenue's down, if the company's not doing well. It's easy to have really strong culture when like you're swimming in money and like everything's a party and like, we have all the space in the world. But it's hard to stick to good culture when things are hard, money's tight, people start pointing fingers. And so like that can be a difficult thing to work through if you're not really sticking to it. The other things that can go wrong are bad hires. Like I think that especially in the leadership team level, like I notice as a leader that the higher up somebody is in my organization, the longer it takes me to tell if they're a good performer. So like an individual engineer, I can usually tell within a month or two. A manager, it usually takes like, 3 months to 6 months. A director can take as much as like 6 to 12 months. So I can only imagine that like as a CEO, if you're managing a leadership team, it can take a while to understand how effective your people are. And so if you make bad hires, and don't notice quickly enough that they're impacting the culture of the organization, you can have mass exodi, before you know it. And I think that's important. I think it's like holding, like when people aren't holding leaders accountable for culture, when they're not noticing that there's a bad hire made. I think those are some big mistakes. I think that a lot of leaders, when companies scale, they think, oh, I need to bring in like mature leaders who have done this before. Like, I'm going to bring someone from Microsoft. I'm going to bring someone from whatever. And sometimes they do it too soon. And it can also destroy the culture because that person is operating in a very different environment where that cultural like thing is not the same. And I think that's another thing that people need to pay attention to is they like hire for like experience instead of culture sometimes. And I wish they would pay a little bit more attention to both.
Absolutely. I'm not sure if I've read it somewhere in a book or an article that, yeah, so to your point, sometimes they are called bad hires, sometimes they are called um, hiring in the wrong timing, as you mentioned, like right.
Mm.
So it's like one of the main reasons why culture actually start to have issues. And funny enough, it happens on all levels within the company, whether like engineering, sales, marketing, like any department you can go to. And I tend to tell people, and it's funny that we repeat us, not us as you and me. I mean, I see this repeated a lot of times, and I tell people, look, if someone is successful at company X in whatever role, engineering, sales, marketing, you just name it. So this person, he or she were successful, in my opinion, because they were the right fit at the right time there. Now, when you bring someone, um, I would talk about sales because, like, this is where my recent roles were. If you bring like the most brilliant sales rep from X company and you bring him to a startup early, they would not succeed necessarily. And the reason is because the playbooks there are very different from a playbook in a startup, and they would not survive. I've seen it in front of my eyes multiple times. I've seen like people also coming from VP level in different departments and they start to struggle in the startup. And I tell people, look, it's not just the character or the person, it's a mix of person, location, and time. It's like a three dimension. This is my own philosophy on this. And you cannot, like, if you cannot replicate, you cannot copy something. And you need to train that person on the culture first, and then they might be fit. So, um, too much resonated with me, I would say this, Mary. Now, let me ask you this. Um, Part of, being a leader is to prepare successors, right? So,
Mhm.
how do you help someone who might be brilliant in whatever they do on the technology side, but you feel like they need a little bit push to become leaders? You see that there is a potential, but they are missing something. How do you coach them? How do you or mentor them?
Yeah. So the first key ingredient here is they have to want to be like a leader, either a technical leader or a people leader, whatever
Mm-hmm.
they want to do. That has to be the first thing. They have to want to. I am a big proponent of I don't like to push people into roles that they're not interested in. So like step one is like if they don't want to be a manager, don't try to push them into it. If they don't want to be a technical leader, don't try to push them into it unless you absolutely need that for the organization. And then it's actually kind of maybe a performance conversation. But if they want to do it, that's great. What and so then the next step is okay, how do you coach them? So if they want to do it, then what I like to do is I actually almost every organization I go to, I end up rolling out like career ladders and job descriptions. And so it's very clear descriptions of here's the expectations of what you need to do to be a really strong performer in this particular role. And I just write it down, and we go through the list together. We talk about what's going well, what they need to work on, and then we stack rank. Like, here's the things that you should work on in a way that's like not, hopefully not overwhelming. So because you stack rank them, and we talk about what are we going to work on first. And so for each one, I just like to come up with a specific place of like, here's a place that you can work on this skill. So like if if one of the skills I need to work on is having more cross team impact of technical leadership, then it's like, great, I'm gonna be on the lookout for some sort of like feature build that requires multiple teams, and I'm gonna have you lead that. And then that's what will give you practice. And while you're doing that, I'm going to be meeting with you regularly. I'm going to be checking in on how it's doing. I'm going to be getting feedback from the team on how it's going. I'm going to be asking you to get feedback from the team on how it's going. And so I sort of like help create a path, give them the opportunity, and then make sure that I'm like supporting them through it. And that generally has been pretty effective. I think that the places where it can go awry are either if like I don't actually have enough time to support them well, and that means I need to be hiring more managers, um, or like we're directors or whatever, or if they turns out they don't like it. And that's fine too. Like then you can say, okay, well, you don't like doing this thing. Like, let's find you a new path that works better.
Any books, resources you can point, maybe people who are interested. That,
Ooh, there's a book called The Manager's Path, I think.
okay.
Let me just make sure. Yes, The Manager's Path. That is particularly, it's a specific book around tech leaders. So if you're like a technical leader, so that's something that I found to be really useful. But there's books. I would actually, I sometimes find blog posts more useful than books. I wish I could remember the blog post, but there was a blog post that came out recently, or that my friend sent me recently, that was about like unlocking the secret for like how do you make your boss happy. And it's like do things that make their life easier. Make sure that your impact is visible, and make sure you're working on things that the company cares about. And it's like, I love the blog posts that are like demystifying how to like get promoted, or like make your boss happy. I kind of love those. So like, Manager's Path is good, but then blog posts are really good. And then I have some like other things. If you're specifically a people manager, I can always recommend that I have a list of. But generally, I think that's where I'd go.
Cool. Now, kind of a cliche question as we're almost coming to an end. Um, ca- Trends in engineering, in general, Mary, like what's the most technologies that are getting you excited? AI for sure, but other than this,
Yeah, let me see. What is getting me most excited? I think that the technologies that get me most excited, and maybe it's just my background, are new technologies that are allowing people to uh, develop and deploy faster. And so like, yes, AI tools, so like code generation tools are a great example. I'm really excited about them. They could be better. They're getting better. They could be better, and they're getting better. And so I'm excited about that because it just reduces engineering toil. Why write a bunch of tests that are super boring or formulaic when something could do
yeah,
that for you? So like I love that. So I know you said other than AI, but like AI code generation tools, I am excited about because it reduces engineering toil. Um, I'm still excited about like Kubernetes and like spacelift and deployment strategies. So like I'm still excited about that sort of thing. And I think it's just because I still get really excited about how do we reduce engineering toil and help them do what they need to do. Um, yeah, maybe I'm kind of boring. Like all the things I get excited about are like,
no, no, no,
Kafka and like things that have been around for a while.
no, not at all, not at all. Yeah, but to your point, like it's more the automation stuff. Like,
Mhm.
by the way, maybe people who are technical will understand. I mean, even these AI code generation tools, so they have a lot of automations in the background, like where imagine they will create the instance for you. It's a Kubernetes instance, by the way. And then you have the database and you have everything, and everything's happening in the background. You don't need to write single line of, as we used to call it. I mean, maybe you still call it, Mary, I don't know, the infrastructure as a code. Like you just put it in a Terraform and then you just put it and you send it. Anyway, so I don't
Mhm.
want to to go too much technical, but yeah, it's very exciting. Final thing, where people can, learn more about you and maybe get in touch.
Yeah, so you can find me on LinkedIn, Mary Moore-Simmons. There's very few of us, maybe none but me. So that's I guess the benefit of having a really long name. You can find me on LinkedIn. My GitHub handle is MMS the Pizza Thief. So if you want to find me on GitHub, that's where I'm at. I think those are the two places.
Cool. So for the audience, you don't need to search a lot. I will make the life easy. I will put everything in the show notes. If you're listening on your favorite podcasting app, or if you're watching this on YouTube, you will find it in the description. Mary, I really enjoyed the discussion. We tried not to be too much technical. We tried also not to be, I would say, talking only about leadership. So I think, and hopefully, we had a engaging discussion. Thanks for you, of course. And this is usually how I'll end my episodes. This is for the audience. If you just discovered this podcast, thank you for passing by. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did so, please give me a favor, subscribe and share it with your friends and colleagues. And if you are one of the people who keeps coming again and again, I can't thank you enough, because this past 2-3 months are phenomenal for the podcast. We are on the top 200 Apple Podcast charts in 6 countries at the same time. So this is something I didn't see in the past 2.5 years. This cannot happen without 2 factors. First, my guest, you, Mary, we are one of them now, and of course the audience. I really appreciate all your support. And as I say always, stay tuned for a new episode very soon. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Hit that subscribe button, share the show with your tech-savvy friends and fellow entrepreneurs, and leave us a review on your favorite podcast app. Your support means the world to us.